All right. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to our first Monday of the month phone call. I was just sharing with Jamil that this is our new time frame that we usually dedicate to our leadership team, executive director and above. But really excited that we have a special guest today. You see him on the screen. Some of you guys know him. Actually, I bet some don't. We've got some newer coaches. So this is an opportunity and a really, really special opportunity to have one of the top leaders of Optavia, one of the top presenters and speakers of Optavia, and also an incredible author, Jamil Frazier, with us. And this is really an example, you guys, of stewardship. And what we really want to do as a leadership team is allow all coaches to hear different stories, because we all come to this with the same, buying that same health coach kit, but what we do with it is different, and our styles are different, our personalities are different. Want to thank you, Jamil, for the honor of sharing on your call last week. And I'm so grateful that you said yes to spending some time with us. So we're just going to do this interview style, you guys. A lot of you guys sent me questions in advance, so I'm going to incorporate those in. If something comes to mind, if you want to show Jamil some love in the chat, you want to ask a question in the chat, I'll work it in as best we can. We've got about the next 45 minutes to an hour. So Jamil, thank you.
Oh man, thank you. You said it was an honor to be with us, and thank you so much for that. But it's definitely an honor for me to be on with your crew. I know, we all have cultures, and we all do a really good job of establishing our culture and building organizations. And so I know how much it means to be brought in as an outsider and be able to, speak into your group. I definitely don't take it lightly, and feel honored in order to be here and see some faces that I know, Dee, but most of the folks I don't know. So hopefully I can say something that brings some sort of value.
Oh, you will. You will. And like I said, we've got all sorts of coaches on this line, new coaches, experienced coaches. Some have been able to see you at convention or speak on team calls, but not everybody knows your story. And I would love to just rewind a little bit, and let's go back to, even like, all of us are always looking to acquire new clients and new coaches. So tell us about how somebody approached you or how you found Optavia. What were you looking for at that time? And let's just kind of start from there.
Yeah, well, May 17th is the day I bought my coaching kit in 2012. So will be 10 years for me, in about 15 days, which seems crazy. Dee, I know you probably feel like this, and I see my girl Susan Palace on. I feel like you blink and 10 years have passed so quickly. My coach is still in the game. She's amazing. Her name's Becky Flamong. If you guys ever get a chance to meet her, she is one of those people that I think that if somebody doesn't like Becky, there's something wrong with them. I've never met anyone who does not like Becky. She's my best friend's mom. She's basically been a second mom to me since the 4th grade. And I joke with her these days and say she fattened me up when I was younger, because she knew years later we would be part of an optimal health movement. And she would need to share something with me to help me get the weight off. But Becky started reaching out actually to Amanda D. Is how it started. She didn't really come to me. We had just had Ezra, my son, and Amanda was carrying some baby weight, and Becky was really reaching out to her and sending her lots of messages, probably doing it all wrong, what we would consider to be wrong. But that's what she was doing. And I distinctly remember Amanda, my wife, kept coming to me and saying, hey, Becky keeps hounding me about looking into some health program. And she says that she was going to strategically ignore her. This is what my wife said. At the time, I had just started a new position. I had made a transition from pharmaceutical sales working with a company called Johnson and Johnson. Many of you guys know them, into a medical sales position. And we had just opened up a new division to where I wasn't just calling on MDs anymore, but I was supposed to create relationships with dentists as well. And so I just landed my largest account. By this time, my coach Becky started reaching out to me about her whole weight loss thing. And I distinctly told her, I'm not interested, but let me come meet with you, because my coach is a dental hygienist. So is my business coach. They're both dental hygienists, and my business coach, her husband's a dentist. And so I said, I'm trying to break into the world of dentistry. Why don't I come meet with you and hear about your thing? I got a lot of friends. I'll send you a ton of referrals. And why don't you maybe try to get me into the world of dentistry, introduce me to some dentists, and then, maybe our products and services can start to help them. So that's what we did. So we sat down, and she laid out what I thought was a weight loss program. I was basically really heavy at the time. For myself, I was 218 pounds. And I was doing CrossFit, and I thought that's how I would get the weight off. And I was eating paleo, and I kept getting bigger, and no weight was coming off. And so when she laid out her program, I thought, man, maybe this would be good for me to try. And I told her, if my wife would do it with me, then I would try out her program. And she kept her word. She got me into the world of dentistry, which was awesome. I kept my word. I did her plan, and within a week, I was sold. I was sold. Results not typical, but I lost 10.2 pounds. My wife lost almost 7 pounds. I didn't never want to do this program, D, because I was a college football player, and we worked out all the time, and they suggested for me to cut back on my workouts. And at that time, 10 years ago, all the coaches were older than me, very few young coaches. And so I didn't see anybody, one, that looked like me, and two, that was as young as me. So I thought this was a program for old people. And so I was really reluctant. And that first week, I lost all that weight, and I didn't even work out, and I felt amazing. I was just hooked. I could not believe that something that worked so well. And I just started sharing, and not even sharing because I thought I was going to be a coach. I was just happy. And I just gotten introduced to Instagram. And so I was posting everything on Instagram, my eggs. You remember the eggs from back then, the powder eggs? I was putting the powder eggs on Instagram, and and my pancakes and all this stuff.
The
And
eggs, they were awful.
oh my God. And that
Forgot
was
about
the
those.
first fueling that I had, was the eggs. So I can't believe that I stayed around. And every week on Monday, I was posting pictures of my feet on the scale. And I lost 10 pounds, and then 5 pounds, and then 5 pounds. And then I didn't lose any weight. But then the next week I came back and lost 7 pounds. And so from that process, a lot of people started noticing. Obviously, I referred a whole bunch of people to my coach. And then she told me that I could make money. And that's what I really wanted to do. I didn't really want to help people, but I wanted to make a lot of money. And so when she said there was a money component, and I saw how easy it was for people to get excited about this, that's when I decided to start coaching about a month later. And that really started my journey. And was at the beginning, wasn't it was just some little thing. I was making good money. I thought, it'd be fun to bring in a couple thousand. But then after 2 weeks, D, most people don't know this, but after 2 weeks, I quit. And I decided I didn't want to coach anymore. I didn't want to be part of this community.
What was
And I
behind
left.
that decision? Why
Excuse
did you
me?
quit? What was behind that decision? Because sometimes people buy a kit and they quit, and we're like, what happened? So
Okay. Okay. We can tell the truth, right? Like, Okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth why I quit. I was not coachable, not coachable at all. I was very hard-headed. And when I started coaching, my mindset was I don't want to do any work. So I didn't and remember I didn't start coaching because I wanted to help people. I started coaching because I wanted to make money. And in my mind, I thought, wow, this is so easy. I'm just going to take this to all of my doctors, people that I established relationships with forever, and I'm going to have them become coaches. That way they can get their patients on board and they do all the work and then I make the money. And so my mentorship team um, saw me doing all these things wrong, and I was just sending the website to people who were interested. People were interested on social media. I didn't really want to talk to them, so I would just send them my website to sign up, and people did sign up. They just signed up with, I don't know what program they signed up with. They were just, none of my orders were consistent. It'd be like $50 here and $70 here. So within 2 weeks, I actually had about 16 clients, but they were all over the place. Everything was all over the place. And so, and then some of these clients weren't staying on track. And because they weren't staying on track, it really, really, really bothered me. I didn't understand how you could say you wanted to lose weight and then keep deviating off plan. And I didn't want to be a part of, I thought that they were losers. And I didn't want to be part of anybody's story who was a loser. I'm just telling you guys the truth. I know it sounds crazy, but this was my mindset back then. And so, and then once my coaches got me on the phone and tried to help clean up all of my messy systems, I felt like they were trying to tell me what to do. And I've never been the type of person that likes people to tell me what to do. And so, with the combination of clients deviating off plan, these groups of coaches, my coach was so new. Becky, she never trained me. She introduced me to two other people, which I didn't have a relationship with. And it takes a long time for me to trust people. So, because I didn't know them, I just heard it as they were trying to tell me what to do. And I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. So, I quit.
What brought you back? I appreciate the honesty. And people are commenting because a lot of us can get so frustrated still with the people that sign up, but don't really want to make change. So one, I want to know how you deal with that now, but what made you come back?
Well, what what made me come back was my wife was about to divorce me, and and she was, my son was at this point in time about a year and 4 months old. And so she was going to leave and she was going to take him. And and our marriage wasn't very strong. And one of the reasons why it wasn't strong, the whole reason why it wasn't strong was because of me, but I didn't see it at that point in time. We were always fighting. I was always fighting with her about we didn't have enough money. Um, and so whenever something stressful came up that required us to have more income, I blamed it on her because she was a behaviorist and didn't make that much money. Although she loved what she did, she helped, so many kids in her day job, but she didn't bring in a lot of income. And so I saw that as a deficiency. And it really, really irritated me. And and so I argued with her all the time about that. Plus, I just wasn't a good husband. And so in July, early July, I left coaching at the end of May. All of June went by. Um, the first early July, we decided um, to take a trip D to see if we could work on our marriage and see if we can come up with some solutions and kind of have like this last final just let's see if we can pull this thing together. And so as we were going on our trip, which we went to Las Vegas, I have no idea why we went to Vegas. Oh, I remember she won a free trip from like the Ellen DeGeneres show. And so we went to Vegas, and while we were driving, we kept trying to figure out ways to make more money. And I thought, if I'm honest, we kept trying to figure out ways for her to make more money. Because in my job, I earn like $100,000. But in her job, she earned like 30,000. And so I was just like, okay, how can we get her up to like 60,000? And then that way, if we can build in like another 30,000, we can stop all the fights and arguing. And I felt like she would start carrying her weight. This was my mindset back then. And so while we are driving up, we, as an educator, she basically had the whole summer off. And it drove me crazy that in her mindset, summer meant I take a break, right? Like I don't do anything. I don't work. I'm not supposed to work. I just hang out, and I would try to save up a ton of money every year so that we could elevate in our lifestyle. But then that money would always have to go to Amanda because she didn't work over the summer months. And that put a lot of pressure on me, plus a lot of resentment as to why don't you start helping? So as we're driving up to Las Vegas, we kept thinking of jobs that she could do. And then I was like, hey, why don't you do that whole coaching thing that I did a couple months ago? I coached for a couple of weeks. I think I made like $1,400 or something like that. Lost the check, by the way, D. I didn't even know where that check went to.
Oh, man.
And so she reluctantly said that she would start coaching. She didn't want to, though. She said it because she was trying to save the relationship. And then I called up all my coaches. I deleted them all off my phone and social media, by the way, after that phone conversation. So now, early July, I call up my coaches, say, hey, me and Amanda are going to do this coaching thing. Can you guys show us how to earn a couple thousand? And then 3 days later, Amanda said she didn't want to coach and she didn't want any part of it, and that it was a cult and that she hated it, and that I could go be a salesperson if I wanted to, literally verbatim. And then I was stuck there. And then that's when they said, you should go to the national convention.
And what made you listen and go?
I didn't. So I fought that process just like I fought every other process. I felt like it was too expensive. And in my job, I had an expense account of $8,500 a month. So whenever something needed to be done, they paid for it. And so I didn't understand why my mentors wouldn't pay for me to go. You guys, my mindset was so jacked up. I know what I'm saying sounds really wild, but this is the way that I thought back then. And so I asked them, well, which one of you guys are going to pay for me? And they wouldn't pay for me. So I didn't want to go. Plus, I was scared to ask for the time off because this was a new position, if you remember. And they had paid me a significant amount. And so I hadn't worked up to getting the time off. So I was scared to ask. Even though two of my bosses actually were clients, but I was scared to ask. And I just thought, and I wasn't sold on this thing like this. I thought, you have to excuse me, but I'm just trying to tell you guys the truth. I thought people who coach were losers. And so I didn't want to coach. I thought my wife should coach. I only saw women coaching anyway. And so
did you think you were too good for it, or?
I thought I was way too good for it, not just too good for it, but I thought it was so beneath me. It's not even funny. And so I was battling a lot of identity on top of it. And but my coaches, man, I got the most beautiful support team. I remember her just kept asking me, well, what are you going to do? And if you don't do something different, what's going to change in your life? And she just kept saying that. And I would say, well, I'm not going. And she would say, that's fine. You could do whatever you want. but what's going to change for you? If you don't change something, what's going to change? And she just kept saying that. And so like 3 days before, I messaged this other coach and I was like, what's this big deal about convention? Like, why do people keep talking about this? And this was a coach that I began to trust. And she was like, you should just go, like, just go and see what happens. And if anything, it's like a little vacation. You get some time away from your situation. So a couple days before, they found me some roommates, and I slept on the floor and in a room with 4 dudes that I didn't know. Who to this day I have the utmost respect for those guys, and I was so grateful for them. I still am, because they showed me what Optavia isn't. I thought I started because I wanted to get my abs for summer. And that's what I thought this was. And, all those guys in my room, they didn't reflect what I thought it was. And that started this crumbling, this breaking of what I thought it was. And then I really didn't have an intention on building this business. I was just trying to get away from a failing relationship. And as I sat in the audience and listened to hope, really, I I was like, I just saw it so clearly that all the things that I want to do in my life, if I decide to go down this path and use this vehicle, I'd be able to do it, and I'd be able to do it quickly. See, especially back then, you have to understand, I was an all-state football player, which meant I was really good at football. I ran track, and rarely was somebody faster than me. I played college football, was a captain of my team, got into pharmaceutical sales, took a lot to get into that. So I was used to experiencing success quickly. And at this point in time in my life, I did not feel successful, and I beat myself up a lot because of it. And I had been in a workspace for like 8 years up until this point, and I had spoken to so many people that had been coaching for 8 years. And in 8 years, they were what I consider to be free. And I was still freaking scraping just scraping by, and I hated it. And so I just saw it so clearly, like, wow, you mean if I invest 8 years into this, I can be free? Like somehow I can, restore my marriage, and I can actually stop depending on my wife to bring in income. Like I could do it myself and get to a place where I'm not depending. I don't have to depend on her. Let that woman do whatever she wants to do, and I do it, and it was just very, very clear to me from like a day and a half in. So clear that I turned to my coach, and I don't recommend anybody does this, but this is where I was 10 years ago. I turned to her and I said, you just got lucky, because I've decided to do this.
And did it happen like that? Because I mean, we look at you and think, well, he's a leader in everything. He was an all-star football player. I mean, of course, he probably shot right to the top without any problems. So you made a decision, you were going to do something. I think it's cool. I hope nobody missed the fact that a lot of times I think there's truth to where people say, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10. But you actually came into this thinking it was like an 8-year plan. So that's pretty interesting. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of times people come into this thinking, and if it doesn't go as fast as they want, they back off, right? So did it go as fast as you want? Did you hit more obstacles? And what was some of that?
Okay, so that weekend, I set some goals. That weekend, this was almost 10 years ago. I'm not even halfway to the goals that I set 10 years ago. I thought that it would happen. I thought that it would happen like yesterday, right? But it don't always go that way. That's for sure. So some things did happen. I set a goal while I was in the audience to become global director. I had four clients. while I was at that event. Um, and I set a goal to become global director because I finally start to understand like how this thing worked. You know, I didn't know what like executive director was and global director. I didn't know that my business coaches were global director and presidential directors. The same two ladies that I thought were bugging me. Once I realized where they were in this company, dude, I was all in. Like
You
I was
start paying
like, oh my
attention.
God. Dude, when I came back home, I just remember telling the one who's global director, I said, I'm coming to your house and I'm not leaving until you teach me this business. And I did. And I went to her house all the time. She lived 2 hours away from me and I just stayed there. But I decided on global because I saw roughly what they were earning. And I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to have any more fights.
Mm.
And I certainly didn't want to have any more fights over income. And so I knew that like that global director income would get me to a place to where my wife can do whatever she wanted to do or didn't do, and no longer was it going to be something that was a burden or whatnot. Because now, and then what also happened was the heart piece. Up until that point, I didn't care about helping people. But now that I saw what the mission was, I did care about helping people. I just cared about making money more. And while I was in that audience, I started to see that I didn't have to choose anymore. See, before it was always an either or. You know, when I graduated from college, I remember distinctly, I went to a couple different like grad school programs and I was thinking about social work and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, I'm not doing any jobs that allow me to just do good. Why? Because I don't want to be broke and I don't want to be scraping by. Like I made a decision to myself when I was a little boy that I wanted to be wealthy, and these jobs aren't gonna do it. And so that's why I got into sales, but I didn't like sales.
Mm.
I only did it because it was the only way that I can control my income. And I remember after leaving that convention, I started calling my friends, and I went to a liberal arts Christian college where I had to study theology and do all the stuff. So a lot of my friends were PKs, pastors' kids, and all the stuff. And so when I got home, I remember calling up a lot of my friends and I started telling them I finally found it. Like I found the best of both worlds. I don't have to live in or anymore. Like I do this, I help a lot of people, or I don't have any money, or I have a lot of
Mm.
money, but I'm not really helping anyone. I was like, dude, I found an and I was so freaking motivated because I didn't have to choose anymore. I saw that I could let the two parts of me blend into one, and it was so freeing. It was so awesome. And so anyway, I set my goal as global director, and then of course 8 months later, we hit global director D from leaving that convention. And then 8 months after that, we hit presidential. So, um, but you know, there was even within that, there was a lot of difficulty. It's like that first year, that first full year was really difficult because um it took some time to figure out how to sponsor coaches, and then it took some time to figure out how do you what do you do with these people. It's like herding cats. It was very difficult, and especially, you know, like I grew up in industries to where if you said you were going to do something, you did it. You know, like when I played sports, if we said that we were going to do this, then we did it. And like the coach expected that from us. Um, Same thing with my team in pharma. Like if we said we were going to do something, we did it. And now I found myself in this industry to where a lot of people say a lot of things and then do the opposite. And that was so hard for me to understand. I didn't understand how you could say you wanted all these things and then didn't like pursue them or did things that were counterintuitive. And so trying to wrap my head around that type of personality trait was very, very, very challenging.
What do you think the key is? Because I see people commenting that we can resonate with that. I think, like you said, we bring on these coaches, right? They're excited and then they don't do what they said they were going to do. Like, how do we as a coach, what are some tools or skills that we can get to help move them along if that's possible? Or how do we start to sort them out so we know when to stay with them and when is it time to move on, right? Or what kind of questions are we asking?
Wow. Okay. So what I started doing was trying to dive into as much as personal development as possible. So I went on, I'm the type of guy that I got to figure it out. And so this thing was really bothering me. And I started hearing leaders like UD talk about personal development. And so I said, okay, all these folks are saying the same thing. I wasn't a reader. I hated reading. I almost deleted my coaches off of my social media again because they put out this incentive and I won the top 5 prizes, and all the prizes were gift cards to like Barnes and Nobles. And it pissed me off. I remember thinking, what am I supposed to do with this? So when I say I was not a reader and I wasn't a personal development guy, I am telling you the truth. But then it started to hurt a lot because I didn't understand the coaches. And so I said, okay, all these leaders are saying that they're also readers and they dive into personal development. So I had taken all those gift cards and I bought like 60, 70 books on spirituality, on leadership, on health and well-being, on all these different disciplines. And within like 3 months, I had like read them all or listened to the audiobooks. I just freaking consumed this stuff. During that process, I start really working on breathing techniques, and I started working on watching what people do. This is a skill set, watching what people do instead of listening to what people say. And so there's this sense in this sort of detachment, and it really helped me with that. I started doing lots of yoga and I started just really detaching from what people say and detaching from where their heart is. Most people want to do better. They just don't know how, and they're scared, and they have terrible habits. And so I started to now become softened in my heart, and now just in my mind, knowing that every single person's a question mark, and no longer am I going to believe what they say. So, and the biggest difference for me was before, when they didn't do what they said, I had this intense anger with them. And I started realizing that that anger had nothing to do about them, but that was a flaw in myself. And
was that because of how it was affecting you? Because they weren't doing what they said and then how that was going to impact you?
it was part of that, but it was even deeper than that, because my coach saw this as a flaw and encouraged me to really examine where that was from. And I started realizing that what I was doing with my coaches is what I did my whole life. And I started to get angry with people my whole life that didn't do what they said they were going to do. And once I traced that back, I found myself sitting on the front curb of my house when I was in 5th grade, and my dad had left and he found a new family. And he used to say he would come back on the weekends, D, and he would rarely come. And so now I had this thing inside of me that if you didn't do what you said you were wanting to do, had nothing to do with the coaches.
Yeah, it just picked a big scab inside you, right?
Yeah. And so it
Yeah.
was triggering. And so every time it had nothing to do with them. That's the thing about this business. It's you versus you. Like anything that's upsetting in this business has nothing to do with anyone else or anything else.
Could you
It
say
is
that? Say it louder for the people in the back.
anything that's upsetting or hard in this business has nothing to do with anyone else or anything else. It is a you problem. Either you haven't grown enough, you're not big enough person, or you haven't developed enough. That is it. This whole business is a big head game. That's what this whole business is. It is a mind game. And that's why so many people quit, D, or pull back, because it is one big head game. I call it, you have to learn how to become the surgical master of your own mind.
Mm.
I was working with a coach earlier today. He's been to my house. When you come to my house, it's hard to leave without being inspired, right? You got all these acres, you got multiple homes on one lot, and it's freaking huge. It's gorgeous. You go outside, you hear all the birds, you see all the wildlife, all the stuff, right? And so this is a young Black coach. And the first time he came here, he said, "Man, I can't believe like you did this with coaching." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, I'm so proud of you. Like this gives me hope that I can do it too." And I go, "Well, that's why I bought this property, right? Because it's not that most people cannot do it. They don't believe that they can do it."
Mm-hmm.
So even with this conceptually, he understands that it can be done. The problem is, even today, he says that he keeps self-sabotaging himself because he gets to associate director and then it will go back down. And then it'll get to director and then it'll go back down. And today on our call, he says, "I just realized that I'm afraid of success." And he traced that back to where that has planted root in his whole psyche. It's not that this man cannot become integrated presidential director, but his mindset. And until he breaks this, he's never going to break past his associate director. It's just like with our clients, right? You see a client and you're like, "Dude, how come every time you get to 220 pounds, you self-sabotage and you go back up? What is it about 220 pounds? Like you can lose from 280 to 220. You've done this 50,000 times. But as soon as you get to 220, you start self-sabotaging. Why? Here, this whole business is about breaking this, becoming what we call the surgical master, what I call the surgical master of your mind. And that's why I love it so much, because it really, all these other people and things and experiences and coaches and clients, they're just a playing ground for you. They're just a training field for you to get stronger mentally. And once you do that, there's not one person that cannot rise to the top of this business. Now, it goes even deeper than that. There's not one person that cannot rise to the top of our economic system once you get your mindset right. And so that's why I'm so fascinated by what we get to do, because more so than anything, we get to help people shift in their mentality.
So how do we help shift somebody? Because at the end of the day, you just nailed it. It is from within, right? We have to figure that out and like, I think the problem is me. But so we encounter these people with incredible potential, right? As an organization, we would love to even have more men in our organization, whatever. But how do we help shift it? How do we paint the picture? And at the same time, again, we can't tell them, right? It's got to help them get to that self-actualization. But how do we help them not sell themselves short
Yeah,
of what's
great
possible?
question. Great question. So first thing is is have enough people to work with, first and foremost. So I think oftentimes what Dan Bell has taught me is oftentimes we're trying to do too much with too little. And when we're trying to do too much with too little, then you try to drag people that don't want to go. So a big part of this business is timing. And if you're finding, yourself frustrated with either a client or a coach, then that is the first sign that you don't have enough people. So it's so much easier to help people awaken if you have enough people and people actually want to be awakened. Like if you have someone and they don't want to be awakened, I don't care how good you are. It's not going to happen. You could see the world in them. You could see freaking sunshine and rainbows. You can see the next IPD. You could see the next senior coach. You could see the next ED. But if they are not the ones, this is why I tell a lot of the coaches I'm working with who just keep freaking trying to awaken somebody. They are not the ones, not right now. You are spinning your wheels with someone you're trying to shake somebody who's comatose. Okay.
They're talk to more people.
It's not going to happen. Find more people, and I promise you'll find ones that are coachable and who are messed up like me, but they have a desire for more. They're just messed up, right? Like take me. You guys see how messed up I was, and I still am. Admittedly so. I don't have it figured out, but I had a desire for more. D. Why I was so frustrated was because I was stuck. But I wanted more. I just didn't know how to think clearly. So find the people that already want more. And then how you help them is let them borrow your belief. First of all, see in them what they don't see for themselves. So this comes down to soft skills. This comes down to posturing. But if Dee was my coach, and I know Dee's beginning spot. She didn't see herself this dang big, speaking on stages all over the place and stuff, But what I would tell her is, Dee, can I tell you what I see in you? Like, I hear what you want for yourself. So take that time to find out what Dee wants. But can I tell you what I see for you? I know you see yourself helping a handful of people. Okay. I see you one day having a bigger impact than even I have. I know that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But just let it marinate. Because I see you speaking on stages, but only say it if you really see it. But I see you speaking on stages. I see you being a leader of leaders. I see you impacting 1,000 lives. Dee, how much did you make last year? Of 60,000? I see you making 60,000 a month. Now, I know you don't see it, but just let that marinate, okay? So our next step is senior coach. Okay, so the company says we have 30 days to assist 3 or 5 people. I think that in the next 14 days, we're going to be helping about 9 to 10 people.
Love that. So you cast the vision.
Yeah.
Just tell them to let it marinate, because that probably does stir up some fear, like your guy, an associate director who's scared of success. But then you broke it back down. Okay, here's what we do next. And you didn't say we have 30 days to get 5. Company says this, but I see us having 8 to 10 or whatever, in 10 days.
Yeah, I mean, because a human being is always going to strive for whoever sets a lid for them. Like all of you guys who are still working, your company has said, the next step for you in your job is here, and right here, they make about this amount. So we set our lid at what the company said that amount is, 70 grand, right? And that's all we're thinking about because the company set that. You see coaches do it all the time. Optavia says senior coach is 5 clients in 30 days. So we tell our coaches who have no idea 5 clients in 30 days, their mindset. So on the 29th day, they're striving to get the 5th client. Why? Because you just set the lid for them. Like, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I say, well, my belief, because I really believe it, by the way, is that within 10 days, we're probably going to have 8 to 10 clients and probably a coach or so. And now because my posture, I just set that lid for them. Now it's like, okay, like that's where we're going. So always do that. So find out what people really want. Find out, what really drives them, what motivates them. Ask those questions, what would be significantly helpful for you? A lot of people don't even know it. And so, one way that I help expand is I talk about finances quite a bit. And they say, well, money isn't that important for me. That's not why I'm doing it. I say, great, then give me all your money then. Fine. Then you obviously don't need it. I'll put it to good use. Oh, no, 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 no. Like, I need it. Oh, so now it is important. So which one is it? Is it not important or is it important? Oh, okay. So then let me just ask you this then. So if you start doing, if you start bringing in an extra $2,000 a month, how would that be helpful? And now we start to find some whys. So now we start on a journey and they're going to have a lot of craziness, a lot of crazy thoughts. Well, I don't want to add people on social media, or these people are going to think that I'm bugging them, or I'm a woman and no man wants to hear from me, or all of these crazy belief systems. I told you this mindset, right? Or whatever, right? Like I got 4 kids and I don't have enough time. And it's like, there's lots of IPDs with 6 or more kids, right? But anyway, so now you just start helping them. You start helping them pay attention to these things. Okay, look, I know that's how you feel, but I know that you wanted X, Y, and Z. Is it okay if I coach you a bit? Yes. Okay, great. Now, is the way that you're thinking right now, is that going to get you a step closer to where you want to be? No. Okay. So if it's not going to get you a step closer, that means it's not going to help you, correct? That's correct. Okay. So you and I, our greatest tool that we're going to learn for you is how to change the way that you choose to think. And it is a choice and it's probably a habit right now. That's why you're in the predicament you are. So how can you think about this differently that's going to now help you get a step closer to where you want to be? Well, I'm not sure. Well, pretend that you didn't know. What would you say? You see how you make them answer it? Well, pretend that you didn't know. What would you say? Well, I would say, well, maybe adding the 10 new friends today on Facebook, maybe that's not going to have people get upset with me, but maybe like those 10 people actually prayed last night that someone like me would actually befriend them. And I would say, okay, I love that. Was that type of thinking going to help you get a step closer or no? They say, yes. I say, great. Now, what do you think you should do? I should go complete the action step. Awesome. Let's go for it. And so you can slowly start to help this person train themselves on how to think properly. It's just another way of saying stop, challenge, and choose.
That is so good. I love how you like make them come up with the solution, right? You weren't talking at them, like where they said, I don't want to add 10 friends. You didn't tell them how could be somebody on the other side. You had them come up with it, which is fabulous. Anything that you recommend on, I know that the art of asking questions is a learned skill that we, through practice, et cetera, but any resources or books that you've recommended that you think have helped you in the art of asking questions?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Les Gibbon wrote a book called Skills with People. And it's this really tiny book, maybe like 50 pages, but it is so good. So that one's a really good one. How to Win Friends and Influence People, of course, is a really, really good one. Just utilizing your mentorship team. What I do with a lot of what I did back then And now what I advise some of our leaders to do if they're working with folks who it's time for them to start to learn how to ask questions is I just did a whole bunch of videos, little short videos of me asking questions. And I would send that off to my coach, Karen, and say, what do you think? And just ask for some feedback. And I did that with everything, D. Even with health assessments, I would just make a lot of little videos and send them off to her and say, hey, what do you think? And
So to your coach, asking, saying, how does this sound? I'm saying this, how does this sound? And
what
asking for some feedback. That's beautiful.
right.
Yeah.
And I do that with awakening too. Like I remember when I started acquiring some coaches and I was trying to figure out like how do I awaken them, because I knew, I said, okay, I went to convention, something happened there, something lit me on fire. What was it? And then I go, wow, okay, I was awakened. And then I was like, okay, so somehow I'm going to have to figure out how to do that individually with people. I can't just, we only have an event like that maybe every 6 months or so, right? So I got to figure out how to build the skill set. So I started listening to all these people, all these motivational speakers, and started watching them, and Oprah and her interviewing styles and the way she leaned in and this whole thing. And then I just started making videos and sending them to my coach and saying, hey, what do you think? Like, did this kind of awaken you and inspire you? Did this make you want to do more? And ask for feedback. Like, that's what I love about our business is we have coaches that are willing to help us. But we got to do the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say as we're wrapping up? Two last questions I have. What would you say? Because people would look at you and think it's easy. Jamil can awaken anybody. Jamil can lead his organization like nobody else. What is the biggest challenge you've been facing recently?
Well, the biggest challenge is still me. I would venture to say probably every IPD is going to say the same. We all have blind spots, D. We all have blocks in the road, things that still trip us up, fears, things we know we should be doing but don't do. I still have a lot of those. And then I say, what is wrong with you, man? Like, you should be doing these things. Why aren't you doing them? Communication. I should be way better with communicating with my team. And I'm so like, I get an inspired idea or thought and I like to run with it. And at this point, it's really helpful to like pass that down through a committee of people when you have
Get some buy-in.
presidentials and globals, and, but I'm like, oh, I thought of it. Let me just go. And then you break trust and people get up, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, but I don't like to take the time and I don't like, and so that's still, I still have a lot of flaws and I know it, but it's a difference between knowing stuff and doing stuff. So I'm still finding my way. I got a long way to go and I'm still finding my way too.
I love that. And what was the biggest shift lately? I know you said that your organization hit a new record on the number of coaches that they brought on. So sponsoring has been a big focus. What do you think is helping the most with your team regarding sponsoring? Was it a mindset shift? Was it more action, conversations?
Probably focus. They always say what you focus on grows. The way that I am, I'm really good at starting things, D, and not finishing them because I get excited and then I get bored. And so that's a blessing and it's also a curse. The blessing is I start a lot of stuff. The curse is I leave a lot of things undone. So I've had seasons to where I focus in, and I always do this because, you know, when they put the blinders on the horses, they do it so that you're only looking at one thing, and that's that freaking finish line, right? And so I've started being focused on sponsoring and building a sponsoring culture many times. I've just never finished it. I've never seen it through because I get squirrely and I say, well, let's go focus on something else. Recently, I made a commitment to myself and to our leaders that this was the only thing we are putting significant energy behind. I'm going to incentivize it. I told my wife, I said, be prepared for us to invest about $30,000 into this organization because I'm going all in with this freaking sponsoring thing. Our trainings are talking about it. I'm going to start now producing some trainings that you have to qualify for. I don't care if it's myself and one other person in there. If it just takes me and two people, we are going to start freaking sponsoring. And I remember when we first started doing this, D, there was a whole bunch of people that didn't make the training. And they were like, I had like 30 people text me all on one day. Hey, I didn't qualify, but do you think I can get in? No. You had 30 days to sponsor at least one coach and you didn't do it. Okay.
Love
and now
that.
you want
Okay.
on the last, and before though, I always made wiggle room. And I would say, you know what, just it's okay. And I decided I'm not doing that anymore. This is something that we are doing and we are going to start sponsoring. And it's just focus. It's focus and it's language and it's training and it's expecting and getting the leaders on board and saying, you guys, listen, aren't you tired of sort of going like a rocking chair? Aren't you tired? And it's looking for coaches way earlier. The most dangerous ED is an ED without structure. And I think sometimes it's got to hurt enough for you to say, okay, no longer. I don't want to feel that anymore. And so I'm willing to do whatever it takes to not to feel that pain anymore. And I know without a shadow of doubt, the one thing that we need to focus on is new coaches. All day long, every day, that's what it is. And that's what we're about, new coaches. And I know that if I'm raising up an ED, and we haven't started to train that mindset, and these folks are just running with volume. No. Dangerous. Absolutely dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. Because once we get down, and I was that frontline ED person. And once we get into that program mindset, it's very hard to make the shift. It seems like a bigger leap. So I feel like we're going to need a whole nother hour for that at another time. So I would love to come to you one-to-one, maybe talk about some of the stuff you're doing with sponsoring. There were some questions in the group, but team, if you could show Jamil some love, and hopefully you're seeing some of those comments. So grateful for you. Every word that you said, every recommendation. There's people already on Amazon buying the books you've recommended. So
thank you.
Yeah, this team
that went
wants
by
to grow.
Fast. Wow.
It did.
That's crazy.
So thank you. I mean, you really are what Optavia represents and doing good for all. Jamil benefits nothing from this other than knowing he is helping other people grow and become the leaders that they want to be. So thank you.
I appreciate you, and so good seeing many of my friends that's on here. And I hope that it was helpful, and I feel honored, Dee. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thank you. Love you, friend. Bye-bye.
Guys.